Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Cerberus at the Improv. I'm Payman Ascari. To the left of me, I have Mr. Timothy Knight. Tim, pants on head. How are you doing?
I'm not wearing pants. They're on my head. Rainy here in the lower mainland. Actually feels a bit like winter, which is a shame to say because there's still no snow. Sorry, Ontario. Not regretting it.
And over out east in Quebec, Mr. Andre Meloche. Mr. French Frog, how are you?
I'm fine. And you can just show this small picture that I sent you to explain a little bit my mood for this episode.
I thought you were joking.
I'm not. No, that's part of the joke. That's part of the joke.
All right. I'll bring it up. Don't.
Okay. Anyway, okay. No. I will go first. Z dniem rożdżenia lubov moja, meaning happy birthday, my love, because it's the birthday of the vodka today in Russia. So that's and now in liquor store in Quebec, they're putting back the vodka on the tablet for sale because now we will have peace. And if you go to the second picture, they will remove the New Orleans bourbon or whiskey, if you prefer, from the tablet because we are boycotting now United States products. So tomorrow I go to buy all the Maker's Mark. It's my favorite bourbon, and after that I will sell it on the black market next week because the price will skyrocket. At
Andre,
least 25%.
I'm very sorry. I think you explained this back in the green room, and I just wasn't listening to you.
Are
you telling me that your province is boycotting American whiskey?
In 2022, when the special military operation, the first week, everybody wanted to boycott the Russian vodka. They said we will remove it from the tablets, and now it's 33 years after they will boycott the United States, but they put back the vodka. And today it is the anniversary of vodka in Russia. That's why it is Z dniem rożdżenia lubov moja, mon amour, bon anniversaire. So this is my mood.
You're the history guy. What's the name of that Holocaust poem? They're going to revise it now. Like first they came for the Russian vodka, then they came for my...
Exactly. Then they came...
I didn't stand up.
That's good. That's very good. I will try to work on it. It's not quite difficult. What will be next? After the bourbon?
What do we hate next?
Iran. No alcohol in Iran, I suppose.
No alcohol in Iran.
Rosewater, Iranian rosewater. I don't know.
Anyway,
if you get mad at the French again, it could be champagne.
Well, yes, champagne. That would be the next. But champagne, they did it. When it was Iraq in 2002, they renamed the French fry. They renamed them the Freedom Fry.
Freedom Fries.
Freedom Fry, and the French people were very angry because they said, "Wait, we have a copyright on that." So anyway, that's my mood. That's my mood for today.
I was actually thinking of
happy that Canada is a land of opportunity, bootleg opportunity.
Yes,
opportunity all the same.
Yes. Well, we will have prohibition now,
right?
Except for fentanyl.
Yeah, so Canada's disorganized crime will be like on the upswing. They'll be able to take advantage of this. So we'll be looking for people all along the St. Lawrence moving drugs and alcohol and tobacco back and forth across the line.
So let's, like you always say, Tim, let's do a business plan.
To make a business plan. Get her done.
All right, you guys, I'll show you what I'm doing. But yeah, man, you guys take it away. You run the show. I'm just going to check something on Chat GPT.
Oh, he's going to do this live. That's great.
That's extraordinary, especially in the middle.
Yeah. So what was on our agenda anyway?
Well, I think it was you wanted to start with Mr. It's not Child Tree. It's not Child Tree. It will be Carnivore.
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 Carnivore would be Carnivore. That's hilarious.
The spy of the city.
Right.
That was
the City of London's agent in Canada.
Well,
so does that make him Governor General?
No, he's the king.
He's the king. the King of Canada.
Well, he's like the prefect, protectora from, in ancient Rome.
Yes.
Ponce Pilate.
Pontius, so he's a Pontius.
Exactly, and he was not only representing the emperor, he was the emperor in Judea.
Yes. They were the de facto effect. Well, that is partly the model from which the Catholicism bears the authority of the Pope.
Yes, and
that effectively the leader in flesh locally.
That's it. Yeah. So, and the Praetorian Guard, like I would say, the bodyguard of, for example, Justin Trudeau. I wrote that they are the emperor.
The hired thugs.
Well,
Praetorian Guard, hired thugs.
What's our Praetorian Guard? The RCMP?
Yes.
No, the bodyguard of the Prime Minister. It was last year. Last year they spent $70 million on his security.
17?
70.
70. My God.
Well,
and
how many people in it? Well, I guess we'd never really know how many are in that detail.
No, I don't think so. There was a whistleblower in 2022 who got out of the RCMP because he was a sniper in the Coast Guard. I think yes, and he started to explain a little bit how it works.
Yeah, he was one of the frontline voices toward the middle of the convoy. He got involved.
Yes, that's it. So very clever man.
Yeah, that was the redhead fella. Dangerous.
Yeah, Danny Beaufort.
Why do we give firearms to redheads? That's not a good idea.
The opinions expressed by the individual panelists are their own, and they don't belong to the show at large.
I didn't hear nothing. My earphone were shut up.
See, I say this, but all the gingers out there just quietly nod their head. We know.
Your words, not mine. All right, you can say that as an Irishman. Yeah. Let's get started. Sorry, my query on ChatGPT, it fell flat. I wanted to start here. So Mark Carney,
underperforming the Chinese again.
Yeah, the Chinese, Chinese GPT. I don't have access to it.
Right.
The Carney campaign has come out, and they're putting out really good messaging. So if you look at this, he says Canadians never wanted Pierre Poilievre; they just were tired of Trudeau. And this is what we've been trying to say as well. I've been saying it, but Carney has kind of honed in on that. Yeah. And then it attacks the Conservatives, that they're panicking now. If you contrast that with the Conservative Party, so Cat Canada is an influencer for the Conservative Party. Yes. It's not as good as it's not expertly crafted. So Cat Canada is like the C squad here, and Mark Carney's got the A squad. Yeah. I don't know, thoughts. Let's go to the French Frog.
Well, you talk about she's an influencer. That's maybe we will talk about this later. A lot of people, influencer bloggers, they're starting to replace mainstream media.
Yes.
So the fact that they promote an idea or they promote a candidate or a person like Poilievre is, I think it's part of what was happening with the CBC promoting the government. And you have Carney on the other side, which that he still has all the propaganda machine behind him, even if this machine is starting to let's say malfunction, and we know it in the polls, and maybe we'll talk about the polls, but I think that the fight is not necessarily between Poilievre and Carney, because I think it's much more between what we always call globalism against nationalism. And I'm not even sure that Poilievre would be able to wear the hat of a nationalist or a sovereignist, if we want to talk about the sovereignty of Canada. That would be my interpretation. I think it's more complicated than what we see. We see the show. Behind that, you have a lot of negotiations. I don't think the negotiations are broken between Canada and United States, but I think Carney is arriving as an agent, somebody who will. And I think Tim yesterday when we were preparing the show, mentioned it. I think the Liberals are in damage control.
Yes, internally. Yes. Yes, and it's not so much that the liberals are losing citizen liberal support, because they can send out a newsletter and they get responses right away. But what I think they're losing is their upper echelon support. Right. So there are companies and lobby groups and other organizations, internal, external, that are saying, you guys are losing the message. You don't even look good on camera. We're not putting our money into this anymore. So you bring in somebody who exudes confidence, exudes the wisdom of good money management, like Carney does. Whether he is or is not is immaterial. What matters is what he appears to be. So when he has past governor, Bank of Canada, past governor, City of London, the guy's done. Like, as far as the Western world's done, he's on par in Canada politically with what the Federal Reserve does in the States.
I would be curious to know the name, the CEO of the International Banking Settlement. And I would be, it is, what's his name, Powell, in the Federal Reserve.
Was that James Powell?
Yes, James Powell. So
James?
Yes, I think so. Why I say this is because you mentioned that Carney was the CEO of the Bank of Canada and the Central Bank of Canada. And after that, he was the CEO of the Bank of England. So now what would be the promotion? Prime Minister of Canada?
Well,
maybe that's a question. Jay Powell, yes. And you see, this is interesting. Trump mentioned.
I don't know if my camera will pick this up.
Well, yes, Mike Carney. Yes.
No, my camera won't pick it up.
No, but it is.
That's Mark Carney's signature, right?
Yes.
That's Mark Carney's signature.
Of course, he was the CEO of the Bank of the Central Bank of Canada.
Yeah. So and regarding the quality of their program, their politicking as opposed to Poilievre's current politicking. Canada belongs to a cadre of, during the convoy, even prior to the convoy, what sprung up in Canadian media were an alternative media source that at the time was making a strong effort to be unbiased, even though it had a more a conservative / centric, perspective. That it was making an effort to be unbiased. But as we've moved forward through time and the Conservative Party has stepped into the role of, we are your savior because you don't want Trudeau, which is what you mentioned earlier, is they don't want, it's not that they don't want Poilievre, it's that they don't want Trudeau. So then the alternative media is able to vent their anger into a larger audience by leaning into the conservative set of supporters. Inevitably, Poilievre steps into the reins. This now is 2 years past. Poilievre steps into the reins, and now you have a name or an archetype,
a brand,
right? A brand who will take the vague conservative or blue wave, which is a vague thing humans want to attribute to a individual. We want our heroes to be individuals, not groups. So then this transformation happens in the population. So then Poilievre becomes the brand. So then the populists who are conservative and or tired of Trudeau shift their focus and begin to elevate Poilievre as their Lord and Savior. The alternative media sees the wind change, and they say, well, we're going to move into that direction as well, because other alternative political parties like the People's Party of Canada simply aren't getting enough exposure to generate that kind of interest among the people. So being businesses, the alternative media swing into that direction. And they swing into that direction because they're still asking for donations. Well, I'm sorry, but you're no longer really independent alternative media, because why are you still asking for donations? So their business model has changed. The business model has changed because they're becoming more mainstream, at least ideologically, right, or pragmatically in their practice, becoming more mainstream. Because as we've mentioned before, television and that that universe that's on its way out. So what's coming in now is a more internet-centric media, edutainment sphere, et cetera, et cetera. So that's moving into here. So you have all of this evolution happening, and then people like Cat Canada stand up and they make these untrained, uneducated, uninformed statement because they are still clickbaiting, right? Mm-hmm. In the beginning, the beauty of alternate media is a creative writer, somebody with some insight and some courage, can clickbait and get responses and get activity. She's still clickbaiting, right? Using trust as an example to say why Carney is, Carney bad. Well, that's a mistake. But she's saying it because she just needs a loud voice that's against Carney, someone that the public will recognize. But trust is a bad example. So Canada doesn't have the wisdom to acknowledge that. Meanwhile, you've got Carney's team. That's the entire city of London behind that. Right? How old is the city of London? 600 years?
Approximately.
Good luck. Right? Good luck. How many, what kind of quality writers, quality thinkers, people who can do an overall program that ebbs and flows seamlessly with the tide of public opinion and is able to maneuver it simply by making everybody wear gray sweaters, right? It's right. So
I hate having to do this where I go back into my interviewer shoes, but can we go to Andre? Can you tell us what is the City of London? Imagine that the audience has no idea what that is.
Well, the City of London has a special status like the Vatican in Italy. And I will not maybe refer to Washington, D.C. Maybe there's a slight difference. But the City of London, and that's why the mayor of London has lots of power. You have the same phenomenon in Russia where you have 170 people who sit at the table in Moscow when they have a meeting. You have mayor of big cities, you have governor of oblast, you have the president, you have a lot of people who represent ethnic communities. You can imagine 170 people around the table. So the mayor of London and the city, the structure of the city, has a special status in Great Britain. They are very powerful, and it is the head office of the Citibank. So they are part of the structure, the banking structure, the central banking structure. Why I was referring to the Bank of International Settlement and the Fed. They are all over, and you have the Bank of International Settlement, which is the central bank of central bank. So because Carney progressed by being the CEO of the Central Bank of Canada, then he went to London. Now he comes back. Do you think he would accept to have a demotion or something, a job that is less prestigious that he was having? The man is still young. So he needs something more. And I think the promotion is not, I was joking, it's not King of Canada, but he maybe a spy. He arrives here to finish something that the globalists planned for many, many years. And he will represent the global interest, while Trump would represent the national interest. And that's a simple way of seeing it. It's much more complicated behind. And this is where I think Poilievre will have a problem, because we're seeing now he's topping in the polls. He's not, the Conservatives are not coming down, but they are not as popular as, well, yes, not as popular as they were last summer when Poilievre arrived as the leader. So it's quite interesting, and we're still, the parliament is still prorogued.
It's interesting how Poilievre's relevance is directly tied to Trudeau.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And now Carney arrives like a new person, new image, like you mentioned, new brand. So I think we will have to wait in the light of what will happen too with the sanction, not the sanction, but sorry for the lapsus, the Freudian slip,
Tariffs.
the tariff tax payment. So,
Andre, the phrase they use typically to describe what's happened is Poilievre peaked too early. We saw this happen with DeSantis too, where like something happens that elevates him. In his case, Trudeau being a tyrant and the trucker convoy.
Yeah,
and like so much time has passed that he's become stale, and his slogans, they're not really resonating anymore. And this is why I keep pushing this whole threat from Carney. So Tim, you mentioned earlier that the Liberal Party still has the base, but maybe they don't have the business class because the businesses say, you know what, we're not investing in you. Is Carney like a fresh coat of paint to convince those businesses to come back? And if so, what percentage of them do you think will come back?
There are words you will never hear Carney say, such as the budget will balance itself. He'll never say that because it's just ridiculous. So he's going to, at least on the surface. I mean, I hear voices say Carney's a moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm like, you need to be quiet, because the man didn't get to where he is by being stupid. Even if he is a puppet, he's agreed to that relationship. Right? So, where was I going? Remind me again. I just had a moment.
Carney is going to be the best prime minister ever.
Right. He's going to be the prime minister for about 3 months.
You were talking about balancing
the budget, right? Thank you. Sorry. So the man knows what he's doing. He got to where he is because he knows where he's doing. Regardless of who his paymaster is or what his orders are, he knows what he's doing, because everybody works for somebody. There's no way around it. Everybody works for somebody. So he's going to bring back to the Liberal Party the fiscal responsibility, not necessarily accountability, but responsibility, so that he will paint that we're back to being responsible managers of the nation's funds. This will assist Canada's, AAA credit rating over CCC or whatever it is now. Rating will boost our financial relationship, our financial reliability overseas immediately. My take on Carney ends up being he's going to be prime minister for 3 minutes. Well,
according to what Jack
and
means,
then they're going to go to Singh is what's that word? Singh is an unreliable narrator.
But he's still dancing.
Oh, of course he is, because we're lunatic enough to keep paying him.
In old Western movie, you want to make somebody dance, you shoot at the floor, and the person dances.
That's right.
So who's shooting?
Well, it no longer
Trump?
Trudeau.
Is it Trump?
No longer Trudeau.
You think Trump would care about? You think Trump would care about meeting Jack meet Singh?
I think very.
He can't. He's a terrorist.
Well, that's a good direction I would go with that relationship, because Trump would look at Singh and say, "You're a terrorist. You stay inside Canada, because I will find you. I have a particular set of skills. I will find you, and I will arrest you as a terrorist." Right. So, Singh is imagine the bizarro world where Singh becomes prime minister and is actually never allowed to leave the country.
That's what is happening to Vladimir Putin now.
Right.
Could you imagine if Prime Minister Singh had to fly to Mexico? Like, they'd have to go around the U.S.
He'd have to
the airspace is closed.
He'd have to take a boat.
But that's a good remark. And why I refer to the parliaments. The parliament is still prorogued, so we are still waiting while there is a economical. I will not even call it a war, because Trump never declared war. He never declared an economical war. He said specifically, fix your drug cartel problem, manage and secure your border, because you're threatening our national security. That's simple. And everybody's panicking on the north side of the border. Everybody's panicking.
But they're panicking because they spent the last 9-10 years intentionally perforating the border, because that's part of that's part of the yellow brick road to get to 2030.
That's the
Right?
part. That's their
Part of
business
it.
model.
So,
That's their business.
if they firm up the border and execute the actual mandate, which is to protect, to prevent illegal traffic back and forth of goods and persons, then the UN is like, wait, what are you doing? That's counter to what we told you to do. So they cannot do it.
What was the symbolism there? The yellow brick road? Are you talking about the Compact for Migration?
Yeah.
You're talking about the managed implosion with all of this.
My son calls it managed incompetence.
They're both.
Right. The Canadian Border Patrol was told, you guys need to supply drones. They've agreed to supply drones. So then the Canadian Border Patrol goes out and they buy $1 gazillion worth of these, high-end, big 4-foot monster drones for patrolling the border, and go over to the American Border Patrol and say, here's your drone. And the Americans go, what's with all the Chinese lettering? We can't take these. They're Chinese. This is suspect technology. Absolutely not. We don't accept this. And the Canadian government gets to say, but we did what we were told. Managed incompetence. They intentionally delivered an unacceptable product.
So behind what you're saying, there would be an intention.
Yes, absolutely.
From Canadian Parliament, Canadian politicians.
Well, maybe not the politicians themselves. Remember that within the political realm, you have the legislators make legislation, but the bureaucrats determine policy.
So you're talking about managed incompetence. This is one thing. Scott Moe, he's actually not incompetent in this case, and he's saying don't do retaliatory tariffs. But this Maharaja guy, whoever he is, he's saying, like, why aren't we just stopping illegal immigration and fentanyl?
Because if you do that, then you're stopping 2030. The perforation of the border. Remember, we are a post-nation state.
Post-national state.
Right?
You heard it here first, folks. We're predicting that the globalists are running the country.
Tim,
there it is. There, the purpose of a system is what it does.
Well,
right?
If
someone tells you they're an ass, believe them.
Go ahead, Andre.
They are running the country through lobbies, through corporation, through a lot of leverage that they have. And if we think about the illegal immigrants and the fentanyl, you have all the 17 United Nations sustainable goals. I think we worked on that. And if you go against the narrative, you will be punished. And there was a small video of Carney when he was talking about all the companies that have to invest in the Agenda 2030. And he said, we will reward people who will support this agenda, and we will punish the one who will not support it. It's not even who
said that?
Mark Carney in a small video.
Oh, yeah, I have it loaded up. We won't play it, but I'll just show it.
No, but it is important because Carney said we will punish. I remember François Legault in 2012 when he was starting the Coalition Avenir Québec. That's 13 years ago. He had an interview and he said, when I will take power, we will remove everybody who will not think like us. And so you see Carney arriving and say, we will punish people who will not agree with the net zero carbon goal. How can he change his mind now? Because the carbon tax is still there. They all try to backtrack Freeland. They all try to backtrack and say, oh, we will abolish the carbon tax, but we will replace it with something more fair for Canadians. It's not true. It's not true. They cannot go back because it's part of the United Nations 2030 agenda.
Yeah. So having been given the target, and you're giving the target to what? 220 countries or 180, whatever's in the UN, right? So having given them a target, you say some countries will go like, wow, that could take us a while. We have to go around with this, and this. These are our obstacles, etc. And then so the UN says, we don't care how you get there.
Just do it.
Get there. So we'll find a variety of different approaches. Some will be similar, some will be not. Some will actually look more right wing. Some will actually look like regular liberal, behavior. Some are going to be on either extreme. But then the UN will be watching all of the fallout and all of the productivity that comes from all this various 200 different ways of doing this at a national level. And this will inform, this is like research. This will inform what the New World Order structure will operate like. It will inform it.
You guys know, obviously, you know what the White House press secretary is. Everybody knows what a press secretary is.
That's the redheaded lady, right?
Yeah, Jen Psaki. Well, the new one is, I don't know who she is, but Klaus Schwab, to me, he's the press secretary for the billionaire class and the bankers.
Yes. Yes.
He just comes, he's the worst press secretary.
And as a public face, he's expendable. That's on purpose. The talking heads are all expendable, right? It was Soros before him. He's gone. I mean, he's not, but he's not on the front anymore, right?
The game is very complex, and I think you're right, Payment, when you talk about Schwab's. And Schwab's, when he wrote his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, I didn't read it because I don't read scrap. No, it is Henri David Thoreau who said in one of his books, he said, hurry up to read the great writers because you will not have the time to read them all. So Schwab's will be very, very far in the back of the bus. I will never read him. I have so much things to read. It's like Yuval Noah Harari, all those ideologists who think that they know better than everybody. John Kerry, who lectures everybody on climate change, Al Gore, and that when they fly on private jet and they arrive and they tell you that your car will destroy the planet. When you look at the coal plant in China, now even Germany is stopping windmills plant and they're reopening coal power plant. What? There's no more climate change? So like Tim said, they're all expendable. You can get rid of them if they don't fit in the marketing plan.
Yeah, and that's part of the beauty and also the failure of democratic models, because every 4 years we stick a new fuse in the circuit and blow it out every 4 years, right?
Yes.
Right. This is exactly the primary failure of a democratic model is that all of our leaders are on a timer and they all blow up after 4 years. The smart ones manage to extend it, but most of them won't extend it beyond 10 because that's half a generation. And yeah, we've had enough of him. Out he goes. And then you have a protest vote. And that's the Canadian model since probably Trudeau Sr.
1967.
Yeah.
I just want to read this comment from Sue Kellen Dyer. She's really involved in politics in Canada. He said, this Carney said at his launch that Trudeau took his eye off the ball. He stated his only focus will be the economy. The narrative was set on that day. He will present right of CPC financially and will avoid speaking about social left messaging. Yes. He's courting the center voters who went to the CPC because of social left bent of Trudeau. He will present conservative and avoid all questions on specifics, promote his background, sell his Canadiana hockey childhood, and will use his arrogance to attract people something.
Et cetera, et cetera. And she's right.
She's
right. Because we looked at a poll, last week, that had 241 projected seats for the Blues and 6 for the Liberals. So the question is, where did all the Liberals go? Well, they're left of center for the Conservatives. That's where they went. So Carney's job was, you make sure that doesn't happen to the Liberal Party. So you go find those Liberal voters who are now affiliating themselves with a more fiscally conservative viewpoint. Because we're not going to get everybody back on social jargon because Trudeau has run that bucket dry, right? Then we're going to have to get everybody back on fiscal responsibility. Like I said, this is damage control. So as far as he's presenting to the general public, I agree with Sue. presenting to the general public fiscal responsibility, and then he will prevent the red that he's losing to the conservatives. And by pulling them back, if he can show, because it doesn't matter what happens between now and then, knowing that the conservative vote is going to be the next majority government. But what he has to do as a Liberal Party leader, ignore the PM title, because he won't be PM long. He'll be like Kim Campbell PM. That's about as effective as it will be, right? His job is to make sure the Liberal Party does not tank. So his messaging here, courting the CPC leaning Liberal supporter, which is exactly right. And that degree, that Canadiana, right, the hockey thing, that will appeal to the Gen X, which is most of the voters that they're losing. And the arrogance also will appeal to people who need to see somebody who is cocky and able to pull it off, not Trudeau, who's cocky because it's always in his hand, right? So Sue was dead right on.
We got Andre. I'll hand it over to you in a second. We got shots fired. Wolf is not a fan of Sue. He's firing back, but no, Sue. I really liked your analysis. While Andre is responding, Sue, what suggestions do you have for the Conservative Party right now? What would you tell Poilievre if you were his campaign advisor? Go ahead, Andre.
Well, I agree with what Sue wrote, except for one thing. Carney cannot be fiscally responsible, especially because when the tariff will kick in, and if, like Scott Moe and I think Doug Ford mentioned, we will retaliate $1 for $1 on tariff, what do you think will happen? You will hit Canadian industry with 25% tariff. Well, they will shift back this increase to consumers, and it will happen the same thing in the United States. So everybody will lose. The price of life will grow up 25%, depending on the sector. And he will have, I think Carney will have to address the fiscal irresponsibility of the last 10 years. Because we have what, $1.35 trillion, and just for Quebec now it is $350 billion of provincial debt. How can you sustain that on the long term, especially now that what's his name, Tim? I forgot his name, the CEO of the Central Bank of Canada, lowered the interest rate again yesterday or Wednesday. Tim, I forgot his last name. They
not
lowered
right,
it
apparently, because the check is not here.
No, but you understand what I mean. The fact that even if he tries to avoid the social problems that we have, fentanyl, the border, the immigration, the housing, cost of life, if he avoids that, to try to recover the base or a certain part of the voters, liberal voters, he will face short-term consequences, and they are coming. And now, how do we deal with our most important neighbor or most important ally, economical ally? We're threatening him. Why I made a joke about the bourbon. It's like we're threatening them to retaliate. You retaliate what? You're fighting with your neighbor. Yeah. Why can you just negotiate and agree on something? Yeah. Trump was not asking something complicated. He was asking secure the border, take care of the cartel. Yeah. And but like you said, Tim, it's part of the agenda. Yeah. So they cannot do it.
Yeah. And regarding the cross-border rhetoric, I'm reminded of the movie Untouchables, Sean Connery, right? He brings a knife to the fight, you bring a gun, right? So it's the escalation.
Escalation, right? Yes.
It's the escalation problem. So and our premiers don't have deep enough pockets. They don't have enough tools to go against the juggernaut that is the United States of America. Because while Canada, and you can see us all now, all of a sudden split into 10 little factions. And I think that was Trudeau's intent. Because initially, the premiers were saying to Trudeau, whoa, slow down, easy on the rhetoric, easy on the hard language. back off, back off. Trudeau calls an emergency first minister's meeting, and the next day they're all parroting what he'd been saying the day before. So shenanigans are afoot, but now you've got a fractured stone, fractured gem, and they're all saying slightly different things. But when you threaten the United States of America, all 51 of them form a line, right? We cannot sustain an economic, confrontation with the United States. So Paul Lever's messaging need not be anything at all about the Liberals right now. All he needs to say is in the appearance of, we have been America's biggest trading partner since the biggest time immemorial. We are very keen on retaining the quality of that relationship. He can talk about NATO. He can talk about NORAD. He can talk about Second World War. He can talk about it's that UN, blah, 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 and all that to show what a good relationship we have had and that we intend to maintain this relationship. He's not the one who opened up the borders. He permitted it, but he's not the one who opened up the border. So he's not the one taking heat. Trudeau and the Liberals are the ones taking heat. So he can play nice guy and say, we're interested in a relationship that is strong and future forward, et cetera, right? He doesn't have to approve of Trump. He just talks about the United States of America, maintains that slightly vague appeal. So he can do that. And that alone will elevate him above.
I take a more pessimistic view. I think Pierre Poilievre is screwed. It's not even his fault. The Conservative Party has no vision. It has no brand.
In order for him to be screwed, though, means the Liberals are going to win.
I honestly think they will, because they have a better vision. And Mark Carney has a strategy. Pierre Poilievre's strategy was, we're not the Liberals, we'll kind of lower taxes. You can't excite people like that. When there was a boogeyman in the room, Trudeau, I know we said we wouldn't mention his name, when he was around, you could do that, but I don't think he can't really ride that wave anymore.
Well, you think you mentioned that Mark Carney has a strategy. It is not him who has a strategy. It's a global structure that has a strategy. He's the messenger. But I do agree with you. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative, they were reacting. They are always in a reaction. If they were really conservative, they would talk about, he was talking about two gender. He started to open, but for 10 years, the Conservative always followed the United Nations Agenda 2030. He did not back off from the Paris Accord. So he's not distancing himself, and he's showing the World Health Organization, even if it is quite controversy from Trump. But you see, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, she said that they want to pass a law to get out of the World Health Organization. And you have the same thing in Germany. What is happening?
But you know what they did to her, right? They're opening up a criminal investigation in her now.
Well, this does not surprise me at all. You know, you cannot expect that they will not fight back. Then the fact that Carney arrives, Tim mentioned it, it's a branding. But the real strategy is the sustained goal, United Nations SGO, sustained goal. I forgot the acronym. Anyway, you see it, and people are caught off guard.
SDG.
3 months ago, the Ministry of Finance, the new Ministry of Finance in Quebec, announced that they would ban the gas car in Quebec starting 2025, 20% and increasing every year. Now, because of the tariff, they're starting to backtrack, and there's maybe the goal of 2035 when we will ban all sales of gas car. Maybe it is not realistic. They are in reaction because they never had a plan B. For them, the plan A was, that's it, and we do not go out of this. You understand? They go to war. They have one strategy, and then the enemy starts to adapt, change his narrative, go around. And we saw it with the people, the Freedom Convoy. But like Tim said, the influencer or the blogger, they did not, they filled the gap, but they did not adapt to the new message.
So I was going to say, Tim, I'll let you comment on that again if you want to go back to Carney, but let's use that plan B. He said they didn't have a plan B. Let's use that to go to Trump. So I'm noticing some moves from him, and I'm going to tell you roughly what I think is happening, and we can go from there. So I see a split between him and Powell. Like, he came out and he criticized Powell, and he said something really, really important. We will unleash lending for all American people and businesses. He's signaling that if the Fed doesn't do this, he will. And to me, that has to go through the Treasury. A whole bunch of the international transactions, daily transactions, whatever, goes through the City of London. There was an attempted.
All forex goes through City of London.
I don't want to get caught out saying what percentage, but a lot of transactions, more so than the U.S., goes through London.
Yes.
The Treasury Secretary, they tried to kill him, or at least attack him with a Molotov cocktail. He's coming out. He's saying we shouldn't have income tax. They actually put this in the bill in. He's come out against the BRICS nation. These are fighting words. Like, you're either with us or against us. Like, that's what Bush said.
That's a Bush comment. Yep.
Yeah, it's a Bush comment. I mean, everybody knows what happened with Colombia. I won't go there again. My point is, like, he's up to something, and this isn't just regular, phallus swinging. Like, I think he's got a strategy where he wants to bring a lot of this financial transactions back to America. And the last thing I'll say is J.D. Vance. He wrote a book, Hillbilly Eulogy. So J.D. Vance is all on board with this whole protectionism, bringing manufacturing back to America. So I think he's actually got a strategy. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
There's a bug in the machine.
I see the hamster wheel. Yeah.
We're patient.
I'm batting 0 for 3 for my predictions. So
yeah, but it's the bottom of the night. You have 3 men on bases, and
Trump has 4 years to leave a legacy that'll last the next 50 years.
Yeah, it's history too. Huh?
Right. Yeah. So
how he will be remembered.
And he knows this. He just spent the previous 4 years campaigning. That's So he's at right now, and this is just off the top of my head, he's upwards of $10 billion spent on getting into that chair for the second term. So let me see.
I can read it if you want. If Carney talks right of CPC on the economy and the CPC goes Trump on social policy, the center vote goes liberal. Carney's job is to stop carnage and gain strong opposition. He's after term 2, unless, of course, they delay the election until October or 2026. He will then try for the win.
Okay. I agree with this. And no real modifications in there either, because my take right now is his talk on fiscal responsibility, his talk on keeping things regarding financial matters, ignoring what came, what's that word? Unburdened by what came before, right? Which is the screw Trudeau. We're beyond that. He's in damage control, which I continue to say. This comment supports that, and that his job is to stop the carnage and gain strong opposition. So his job is to recover the losses structurally and support-wise that the Liberal Party has suffered, right? So the chat's moving too fast. I'm getting distracted. So is he after term 2? This is someone who then that means he's looking 10 years down the road. If it is possible that they are able to extend the current term into 2026, which they are legally permitted to do, and I've been saying this since 2021, that if I knew you could not get rid of me for 5 years, I would take every paycheck for 5 years, right? So it now behooves the party, the Conservative Party, to do what they can to force an early election, because the longer Carney sits in PM chair and provides stability and provides relief and shows that our dollar is not dropping as a result of this relief, If he provides this and is still able to do other things he leaves the social morass where it is because it's running well enough under its own steam. And then he goes back to supporting the financial requirements and stopping the bleeding of inflation. Then the lost liberal supporters will come back home. And in addition to that, you wait another 8 months, 10 months of that kind of stability, he's going to gain CPC followers as well. And he's going to gain NDP followers because Singh has proven himself to be completely unreliable. So he's going to win those too. Right? Because if the Liberals can prove that they're stable financially and their progressive ideologies are continuing along tickety-boo because Poilievre is not stopping them, then yeah, it's entirely possible that if we wait until 2026 for the next election, it could well be Liberal again, and Carney would be at the helm. And if he were to do that, he'd be there for 2 terms, and because the CPC would be completely deflated, because they would have projected to be 240 seats, and to come out with a minority would completely deflate the CPC. Poilievre would be looking for a job at, I don't know, Corner Gas or something.
Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, you're referring to, I would say, national policies. If we go to a global level, when you look at what is happening in Europe, and especially in Ukraine and Russia, you understand that, first of all, Russia is winning everywhere, and they don't have any intention of stopping what they were asking. It's not Trump who will inflex or be able to bring Vladimir Putin or the Russian at the negotiation table. It's Sergei Lavrov was very, very explicit on that. So Trump is doing a very good job for interior politics. Globally, he has to face a problem. China, which is the biggest economy in the world, and how they can produce and outperform practically all nations on this planet on many domains. And Trump, I think he knows that, and the only way he can straighten up United States is to try to have strong allies, for example, like Canada, and natural resource, Greenland, and trying to weaken the European Union. When he was talking about getting out of NATO, I think he was showing that you will have to deal with Russia. Not saying that Russia will invade Europe, but you will have to deal with Russia, because if you want, you can bring all the companies in the United States. We will have cheap energy. Think about the income tax. You remove all the income tax, but you have a tax on the consumption. And first of all, that doesn't work, because rich, they spend, poor, they don't spend. This is not a fiscal system that works. But Trump is trying to balance the global context and the national context. And I think he was counting on reasonable or rational Canadian policy, which is not. Carney is not arriving to negotiate with Trump. Carney has the same software, the same program. He cannot change his program. But this is where I think he will not succeed, because globalism is starting to, I would say, it's weakened. A lot of people are waking up to all those goals that will limit the freedom of people. And I think that in the next 3 to 6 months, we will see something that will change. All the tectonic plate will start to switch. If the tariff goes in Canada and we retaliate, there will be a very high inflation. You cannot sustain that type of inflation on an economy that is already on its knees. Why the Central Bank of Canada lowers the interest rate? They want to release a little bit of that inflation. But if they continue to print, because all the government, you mentioned it, Tim, First Minister and the Prime Minister, they said that they would inject a lot of money to support Canadian businesses to countermeasure those tariffs. What they will create, they will inject a lot of money that they don't have, so they will create inflation again. And we will see it here. We will see it in the United States. You cannot win when you create inflation like this. First of all, you will infuriate people. One day they will say, wait, that's enough. Yeah. When it's minus 25 outside and you don't have electricity in your house, it's minus 25 in your house. So people will go out on the street. And I can guarantee you, Canadians, if they don't think that we cannot have civil war on our land, they will be surprised. It can go very fast if people are pushed to the limit. Look at the Freedom Convoy. They got out and they said, we don't want your injection. And they went there and they were strong. That's the strong and free of the Freedom Convoy. Mm-hmm. That is part of, I would say now, Canadian history. I think we will see big shift in the tectonic plate, politically speaking. How it will unfold, I don't know. But what I would say, we are not rational now. The Canadian politics are not rational. Everybody's trying to, like I was mentioning, come on, they want to remove all the American product, boycotting product. Amazon is out from Quebec for another reason. But anyway, you have this mad reaction, mad behavior. You don't think rational. And they act like this because they are caught off guard. Like I said, they don't have a plan B. No. And they stick to what their narrative. They don't think. If they would think 1 minute, they would reunite themselves and they would say, wait a second, like you said, Tim, we're threatening, we're the frog, I'm sorry, French frog, threatening the bull. The frog is threatening the bull. That's de La Fontaine, la grenouille, la grenouille et le bœuf, the frog and the beef. And the bull, and the frog that wants to be as big as the bull. You do not threaten an ally that is so powerful. You have to accept your place. Yeah. Canada is a middle, I would say, not a big country. It's not a global country like China, like Russia, like Iran, but it's what, 40 million people with a lot of natural resource, and we're not intelligent enough to ally our policies with Donald Trump. I think the Liberal will not win, and they will lose the election if there is an election. But the Conservative are not better because they don't have a strategy. They are still stuck in the United Nations 2030 agenda. They don't get out of it. If they would want to distance themselves, they would do it.
They're not stuck. They're willing participants.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Willing They're not participants.
They ask Poiliev question, and he never clearly declares.
Can I ask? Let me ask you about that. Tim, you said they're willing participants.
Absolutely.
I'm not a fan of the Conservative Party, but could this be? I feel like it's more because the country is so liberal. There's so many liberal voters that they hate Poilievre. They're only voting for him because of Trudeau. Now he's gone. They'll be like, oh, let's go back to the cushy, fuzzy, warm, liberal policies, money for everyone.
So which Canadian Prime Minister signed Agenda 2015?
Stephen Harper.
A trick question.
Stephen Harper.
Not a trick question. All the agendas, all of them, all the Agenda 2000, Agenda 215, Agenda 2025, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, all of them signed by Conservative Party Conservative Party members of Parliament, governments, right? So the party, the Prime Minister is speaking on behalf of his party, but also the government. They're all conservative, every single one of them, without fail, right? And a lot of these very progressive globalist documents that have been signed over the last 30 years were initially resisted by the liberal parties during election campaigns. They were originally resisted by Liberal Party. The Transatlantic Partnership was started by Harper. In his last year, Harper came public with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And Trudeau was very vocal against it. Very vocal against. We don't want this kind of relation. We don't want other, particularly, the Pacific Rim, to have this kind of influence in Canadian law, et cetera, et cetera. But after he was elected, they went back and they made a couple of modifications, and then they signed it. Right. So what you have is one party that has the stones to push something forward because it fits their persona. It fits their profile. It's what you expect them to do. The other party resists it. This is uniparty behavior. The other party resists it because you need conflict, or at least the appearance of conflict.
The appearance of conflict.
Right. And then so when the other party is replaced by that next heir apparent, they adopt it, modify a little bit, and then push it forward again. They continue to move. They're not kicking a can. They're adopting the can.
Let me rephrase that. Again, I don't like the Conservative Party. I think they're globalists. I think we have a uniparty.
Yep.
But I think we have a bigger problem. In the U.S., they have an awake population that got behind Donald Trump, and they demanded citizen change.
Yeah.
We don't have that in Canada.
No.
Yet.
Nope.
No, you're right.
And I see two futures immediate, and I'm going to be little bits wrong on both. At the end of prorogue, right, Poilievre successfully gets it called non-confidence, and we get an early election. If that happens, Conservatives win, hands down. If there is an election before October this year, the Conservatives will win, because the Liberals are still not. They're still disarticulated. They're literally broken apart.
They're brain dead.
And structurally and organizationally and internally, with all the trouble that they're having, look at the conflicts. It's taken 2 private meetings with the caucus for Trudeau to sort out people, Liberal members who made petitions named with like 40 MP names that said, we need you to sort your shit out. There's another 25 cents. We need you to sort your stuff out, because they all come out of the meeting and they're all parroting his praises, right? So they're disjointed, they're discombobulated. Poilievre, if he wants to win, has to take advantage, and time is of the essence. If Carney gets in as Liberal leader and obviously, right, Prime Minister, then he is able to be unburdened by what is before, not talking about social cues and social policy. Ignore that, because that machine's running just fine, because the Conservatives are not interested in stopping those programs. They make noise about it because they weren't the ones that did it, but they're not stopping them. So they continue to let them run, and they couldn't stop them if they wanted to, because they don't have the votes. So that's already in place. Let it run. Right? What is that? That's so that's your revolutionaries running along until your counter-revolutionaries are required.
Sorry, Tim. I just spaced out there. You said 2 things. Did you say both? Or did you just go with the first one? Okay, what's the second one?
So the second thing is Carney is actually able to recover faith in and among the Liberal Party and their followers and their supporters and their financial members. So if he's able to rebuild trust in there and able to withhold a non-confidence and maintain the government going into next year, if he's able to do that, the Reds will probably win the next election. Because like I said, Trudeau peaked early. Poilievre peaked early. Poilievre, he peaked early. He's cooked.
Yes, but if he wins,
none of this involves Trump.
If Carney wins, let's say he has a minority government, he will still be stuck with a huge economical crisis, whether it is the Conservative or the Liberal.
But the governments, the UN, those operating on the orders of the UN are not told to be fiscally responsible.
No, but it's not
destroy the economic structure.
No, but I go back again to the fact that you can avoid social conflict until social conflict arrives to you. Because if you have a bankrupt country and people are starving or they cannot house themselves, and you have cartel, you have drugs everywhere, and you have we see it with the 15-minute city now. They are They are boycott. Now people are starting to get up. They're going to municipal council. They're challenging those people. Some are aggressive.
Yeah.
And when I say aggressive, it's when you're hit 3 times in the face and you hit back, it's not aggressivity, it's self-defense. People, they are in a self-defense mode now. So they can arrive and they can pretend that everything is fine, that they will print money, but they will create, again, hyperinflation, and they will impoverish people. And people at one point, the breaking point of a revolution or an insurrection, it is social turmoil. And when you arrive at this level, you cannot control, and just look at the police in Canada, they cannot control a mob, a furious mob. It will not work. And this is where maybe Trump understands that, like Payman said, there's a lot of Americans who said enough with the immigration, enough with the DEI, enough with the destruction of our nation. Based on 50 states, and we want action. Trump is taking action inside of the United States, and he's asking maybe his closest ally, Canada, to do the same. We don't do it. Even if the liberal or the conservative arrive in power, You can imagine Poilievre doesn't want to distance himself from the Paris Accord, but at the same time, he says, okay, drill, baby, drill. Let's exploit gas in Quebec. Let's exploit oil, the Arctic. He cannot. This is a contradiction. He cannot not distance himself from the Paris Accord and continue to develop the natural resources. So we will arrive at a point we will have to choose. It is either Canada as a country who wants to negotiate with another big country for energy, because energy is growth. You can see it. If there's no electricity, and I'm in the domain, I was in the domain for 33 years. You look in 2011, China was declaring a growth of 8% per year. And you were looking at the level of electricity that they were consuming, and it did not correlate. It was not 8%, it was 3%. How can you have 8% of growth when you have only 3% of growth in the consumption of energy? And you cannot accord those two indicators. So if we have, and look at Canada now, the energy that we're spending more now, you can say, okay, we're more efficient. But when you look at it, it doesn't follow the growth. So we will arrive at a point where people will say, wait a second, I do not agree to cut my consumption of electricity. No, forget about residential. Think about industries. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with Germany. They had to cut 50% of the industry because they didn't have the cheap Russian gas, and their economy was starting to drown, and many companies stop. And now Trump is arriving and says, come in the United States, you will have cheap energy, cheap fiscal policy. So he's trying to restart the national structure based on energy. And even if it is Carney or Poilievre, what I see now, they will be stuck in a black hole. You cannot continue to sustain the UN agenda. It will not work.
See, I think this is intentional, or at least permissive, right? You say that what you're saying gives me that we want to prevent riots, we want to prevent hunger, we want to prevent, but the UN does not.
No, the UN does not. You're right.
Right? Like if I'm the UN, or if I'm the New World Order, or whatever this structure appears to be.
No, they want something.
You need collapse. You need a crisis before you insert your Messiah.
Let me give an analogy. This is the example. I say Canada is the new Ukraine. So America used Ukraine to punish Russia, and the Ukrainians got destroyed. The UN or the globalists, they're using Canada to punish America, and I think we're going to get destroyed. I really think Carney's going to pick up a lot of support in the polls, but at the end of the day, Trump is just going to be like, no, No, we're not. We're not allowing a Carney liberal government.
Payment, you said something important when you mentioned the American, and you said Canadians are not ready. I agree with you. Most Canadians are not. They're not even aware of what is happening. They see they have problems, a lot of structural problems, housing, drugs, unemployment,
electricity.
But they still live comfortably, quite for the middle class. They will have to lose a lot to understand what the Americans are asking to Trump. And I think you're right. Whatever it is, Carney or Poiliev, we are not aware of what is happening. That's what in my opinion, that's what I see now. I try to see it at a higher level, and I see that I can talk about Quebec. People are not aware of what is happening now. The global context is affecting the national context. It's not only top down. It's the fact that we are in history now. All the borders will start to change, will start to shift. Don't forget that the United Nation with borders, but now it's like the Far West. I arrive and I say I want to take Greenland. Who will stop me? Who will stop Trump to change the structure of America? He renamed the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. He's doing what he promised, even if it is performance. I think he's doing a lot, and I think globalists are starting to be afraid. I don't say they're weak. I think they start to feel that there's a real pushback.
When we started, Tim, I'll let you finish it off. We're going to keep it a short episode. But when we started, I asked you about the City of London, and you were talking about the Vatican. They're sort of sovereign, but we're realizing they're sovereign, and then they're sovereign with a kick-ass military. So Trump is like, it's like, come at me. I have an army. What do you have in London?
That's it. Oh, but London, well.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the United States, let's get to midterm. Like, let's look 2 years down the road.
2 years.
Let's look 2 years. He's really solidified the American border. And I'm not referring to the physical border, but the economic, the trade moving in and out. He's really secured the dollar against, the rise of BRIC. He's really secured the dollar against whatever cryptocurrency is pretending to be. He's really secured the legal system and gotten the multiple layers directly underneath him are all now in lockstep with him. So 2 years to get this done. At which point, some bright spark in Brussels is going to say, we've had enough. And he's going to look at them and say, you and what army? And he didn't even need an army because he's in such a secure position financially. I think I'm going to buy Greenland. And America collectively goes, here's $5 to that. Let me contribute to that. Right. So because a period of protectionism is the contraction before expansion.
Yes.
Right. In the same way that an architect, right, who designs a building, really good buildings that are designed so that your transition spaces, protectionism is a transition space in time. So your architect builds a transition space that contracts and contracts, a hallway that feels a bit too narrow or a bit too short or a bit too dark, or right, stone instead of wood. And then you get out through that hallway or that transition space, and bright lights, big columns, beautiful mosaics and artworks and whatnot. And that's the period of expansion, right? And it's a very chemical thing as well. But this is going to be human nature. If he successfully creates an atmosphere of protectionism among the American people at large, then he will have the same collective will behind him as was on December 8, 1941.
Right? Yes, I remember that day. Well,
right?
Why don't you tell us exactly what happened
after the Pearl Harbor attack, right? Roosevelt had such strength of the collective will of the people had overnight gone from we don't want to be involved to this is enough. that's enough. And so it doesn't matter what anybody else in the world thinks. It doesn't really even matter what the City of London thinks, because the City of London says, we'll find a way through this, because we've been here for 600 years already, and America is only 250 years old. We'll find our way through this. We'll ally along the backside, and we'll outlive this, and that'll be fine. Maybe we won't get New World Order, in our lifetime. Maybe we have to wait another 50, 70 years, but we're okay to do that because we've been here for 600 already. We don't think like Europeans. That's our primary problem. We think of everything in day trading principles, right? Work, was it guaranteed satisfaction or your money back, right? Yes, let it happen on purpose. This is the model of Marxism. This is simple philosophy, simple psychology. It's just straight up human behavior. What someone says in front of a camera means nothing. It just hints to their language. It hints to their lexicon. It hints to the palette of their color, right? That's about it. What they do, especially when they're in politics and business and the upper strata, right? Military, justice, economics, legislation, what they do is what matters. So then how Trump speaks to the citizens of Canada matters more than how he speaks to the politicians. Yes, let it happen on purpose. Let it happen on purpose. Right?
So,
at
Tim,
first,
you found a new friend.
I found a new friend, and I've already given him my Twitter handle. So there we go. Meet you in the DMs. So,
beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Beginning of a beautiful relationship. So my take on it is, it's the same as us. It's all punditry. It's all rhetoric, right? It's all commentary. What they're trying to do is they're all trying to find their dictionary and their audience that resonates and attaches themselves to their words. This is the making of kings, only we're doing it in a more democratic model, with all the media acting as the platform. Right? The end goal, if we get an election called this year, it will be a blue government. If the election is not called until next year, probably a red government. Maybe a minority, but a red government. Carney's one primary goal is to prevent Liberal Party implosion. That's it. The rest is gravy.
Cue the Mission Impossible motto: your mission if you choose to accept it.
Yeah.
Andre, let's go to you. I got to run. I'll let you have the final words. I just got to do a message after that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with Tim. One thing is interesting. What Tim mentioned is long-term thinking. That's philosophy. And yes, he's right. In America, we have this tendency of, because our history is more short, we have this tendency to talk and act and have short-term goals. Carney, if he's elected, he will be the leader of the Liberal Party, and if he has this old mentality of negotiation like diplomat, he will arrive with an historical background. That's the sense of I would say, not modern. That's the sense of diplomacy. You do an alliance today that maybe tomorrow you will not respect, but you think long term. And maybe if Carney is named, and if, like Tim said, if he, let's say he's leader of the opposition, let's say because the Conservative win an early election, he will still be a key player in international diplomacy. Yeah. And he will maybe pressure Trump. Trump has lots of quality, but he's not a diplomat. He's a businessman. When he says something, he wants to do it, but if it is not according to his desire, he will start to threat people. That's why I referred in one of my articles to a mafia strategy.
Yeah,
it's a deal payment. It's a very good deal. Take it. You don't have any choice. Yeah. It's the deal that I offer you. Else next week it will be 40%. So I think that
if you live to next week.
if he leaves next week. What we will see, my concern would be the parliament is still prorogued. We don't have a government, and everybody's running a chicken without head, without reason, and they are destroying the rest of diplomacy that we had. I know Melanie Joly did a very good job on that, but now it's even worse. And my concern is that Canadians will have to wake up. You mentioned Canadians are not ready. I think it's important that they start to wake up, but I think they will not. Not now. They're not ready.
They got to put that up. All right. Well, thanks, Andre. I just wanted to share one thing before we ended the episode. I will be going to do my manly duty and standing up for this country and saving the ostriches. If anybody wants to go there, it is in, I can't remember, Edgewood, BC. So the government's trying to kill. They're claiming they have alien flu, but
good luck. Good luck. We support you in this.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. I don't know if ostriches cluck, but I'll send you guys some selfies.
Yeah.
No problem. Thanks.
Let's end the same way though, real quick, and that is everybody get involved in your local community. Get involved in Boy Scouts or Girl Guides or your local church or something, or volunteer with an organization, Sally Ann or food, that's become involved this way. Get involved in your municipalities, get involved in your school board, get involved in your politics, get involved with local businesses, support local businesses, buy local, all this local stuff, because it's easier to do something locally and get near immediate results than it is to organize, another convoy. Everybody does something locally, then we are going to influence people and restore some degree of pride, local pride. And local pride is what our real identity is as Canadians, is our local pride.
Wolf, I will have to give you some French courses because you...
La
participation.
That's legitimate.
It's I know. In English, we don't have gender.
That's how they speak French in New Brunswick. I know this for a fact.
Yes,
if you put "le" before a word, it's French. If you put an "o" at the end, it's Italian.
If you put "la," it's because you like it. If you put "le," it's because you're ambivalent.
No, you really need French courses from the French Frog.
From the French Frog.
Yeah, well, you can follow Andre as well. Yeah, you'll make 2 friends today.
There you go.
Good.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We actually disagreed on something live on camera. That's cool.
I like it.
Bye, guys.
Have a good day, gentlemen. Thanks again.
Good week.